Okay, let's get the March Park and Rec meeting in order. Can we start with the roll call, please?
Member Eisner is not here. Chair Key,
Here.
Member Merrill. Here. Member Robertson is not here. Vice Chair Robinson. Here. And Member Roser. Okay. And then Council Liaison, Councilmember DeGolia.
Okay. Any public comments for items not on the agenda? Nothing online, is there?
Nothing online.
Nothing, okay. No presentations, and then we move on to the February minutes approval. Do I have a motion or any comments on that?
So moved.
Okay. I have a first and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed or abstentions? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as submitted. Item 5, regular 5A playground improvements.
All right.
Robert, can you give us an update?
Sure. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Let's see, last month we ran through some presentation materials. We followed up the meeting by sending that the slide presentations out to all members of the committee, as well as a variety of furnishing types like shade structures and things for feedback. The feedback that we got was rather limited, and so what we wanted to do is kind of reopen that conversation with the committee. And we can certainly share the slide deck, which is attached as part of the minutes package. We can open up some of the links that were shared out so that we can get feedback on ideas and, you know, things like shade structures or play equipment type layout, because what we'd like to do is be able to get some of that information, bring it back to the subcommittee. Here you go. There's one, I had one at your desk, but here's another one. So that we can start working to refine those towards conceptual designs that hit those target elements. So with that, I'm going to ask Scott to share the presentation materials. And then we'll run through a couple of the links on the furnishings and shade structures to get feedback.
Yeah, how are you guys doing? This is so much better that I don't have the feedback. I can hear myself talk and not repeat after myself after 3-second delay. So much easier to speak. So the feedback that we did receive from some of the committee members had the sandbox being too small, which we were aware of. There was there was one comment that they did like the taller slide structure. They liked that because the older kids would really have something to entertain them and keep them busy in the older age group, 5 to 12. More swings was a comment that came back. They did like that there wasn't one of the concepts that there wasn't just one swing area. There was 2 on one of those concepts that were provided. Another comment was that they didn't care for the central sitting area, keeping it more utilizing more of the space that's allowed there and not having kind of like a central sitting area. They wanted to see a fenced in area with sand in it and structures as well. So keeping like a kind of like it is now where there is a fenced in area. They like the rock structures. They wanted to avoid, some of the comments were to avoid the hip shade structures, so not having the 4 posts. And they like the kind of the 1 post umbrella kind of shade features. There was a comment on integrating similar benches and trash cans that are throughout the park. So keeping it kind of consistent throughout, which does make sense. Doesn't necessarily need to be that way, but you know, keeping the continuity throughout the park with where the tennis area is and those types of things. Some of the so kind of what we wanted to have an open dialogue on is the bigger picture of what the layout will look like. What do we want it to look like? Do we want it to be split up? Do we want it fenced in for the smaller area? I understand there's going to be a sandbox. It's going to be big enough for kids to play in. There's going to be shade, a good amount of shade structures where there needed to be, benches for seating, water fountain, those types of things. So I can share my screen on some of the links we had, but I think, do we kind of want to open it up for discussion on, maybe go around the room on where your guys' heads are individually with the overarching layout? It would kind of, by the end of this, having an idea of two separate concepts to bring to our subcommittee. We do have a subcommittee meeting scheduled for next Wednesday to hopefully have a couple different concepts that are more geared towards everybody being on the same page. So we can move in that direction. Do we want to, does anybody want to start kind of giving their ideas and thoughts?
Scott, to facilitate that, can you bring up the current layout of the playground in terms of its footprint from the survey?
Yep.
Yeah, so either that one or the game time would be another one.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up. It's loading 1 second.
Actually, I take that. Why don't you go ahead and bring up the game time layout, the one with the central seating area?
Okay. Let me share my screen. So this is the game time layout, and then let me pull over kind of,
It's not shared yet?
oh, hold on. There we go.
Game time series 2. Just not with the pretty picture. I think it's probably easier to actually go through with the
Yeah,
just the line drawing.
yeah, computer's going slow. 1 second.
Okay, so just for context, I'm asking him to bring this one up because it shows pretty much the footprint of the current play area. And I know that we're talking about different options of whether or not we want centralized seating or non-centralized seating. And so one of the things to consider is that we can have, you know, one concept showing it and another concept not. And so
Trying to get it up here. Hold on.
and this, I think, is also one of those ones where you have kind of the two different swings. One in the, I'll call it the tot area versus the more open. And
So this is the current layout showing the boundaries. This is where that fence comes around on the smaller kid area, the centralized sitting area, and this is the 5 to 12 and the 2 to 5 on this side. So you walk up, this is where we would have a drinking fountain. I think this makes the most sense to have a drinking fountain outside of the playground. A little sitting area. This is that shaded area showing, you know, whether it be this type of shade or some type of, but this would be the central sitting area. And then this area here would be all fenced in. And it shows here the 5 to 12, you got swings here, you got swings on this side for the younger kids, as well as these play features. What we did talk about, and I talked about with the designer, is this fenced in area coming around can go this way, it can continue through here, come down this way and come around this way and then come back down. And this whole area here can be a sandbox. So this little tiny sandbox is too small, but this would be a bigger sandbox area where you could have some features in there, a little sand table and stuff. And this is, if we're kind of on the same page and thinking this type of layout, keeping a central sitting area.
All right.
I'm sorry, Scott, show the central seating area again, which is that?
Yeah,
This
so
little
in the
blue-
middle there. So in essence, what we have now, you walk
Okay.
up in the middle.
So this does not have where the swings would go in the middle.
No, so
No.
what we're showing is, we're gonna run through a couple of things so that we can refine more or less two different options with different features in them.
Yep.
And so personally, I think it's, good to have one option where you have seating in the middle and you're able to easily cut off is the wrong word, to provide a good boundary for the younger kids with fencing, which is what we've kind of been leaning to thus far.
Right.
We don't need to enclose the entire thing. The things that are not really shown in this one, and you know, there's only a couple of benches in there. I think there was a desire for a few more and then some additional shade. But I think this is a good exhibit to kind of get that starting point on one of the layouts, what you like, don't like, about something like this.
And that
with
was,
play structure being interchangeable.
and that was my thought process on the two different types of concepts, being one similar to this, like Robert was speaking to. It does give you that central seating area. Don't look too much into the type of shade that's here in these sails, be it that it's a pergola style that might match better, or a wood structure, or a single post, you know, shading this whole area, kind of umbrella. But this is a good layout that gives you kind of the existing feel that the survey really, there was a good amount of comments that they did like the existing feel and they just wanted updated features. So this gives you kind of taking this smaller area, fencing this whole area in and coming around, still have your gate entrance here, or be it here all the way around. And you have swings in here for the younger age. You have a big sand pit in here. You have multiple features here for actual, 3 to 5 year olds and really 0 to 2 year olds. These ones here over on this side. And it enhances the playground drastically from what it is now, with throwing in some PIP for accessible areas to these playgrounds and these things on this side, or given the budget, in on this side as well, in a few areas. But this would be one concept, and then another concept would be basically taking out the central area and utilizing the space everywhere for kind of a playground, but you could still fence in the smaller age group. I think it was very clear from the survey that the smaller area at the very minimum should be fenced in.
All right, Scott, I have a couple of questions before we,
In that image,
you need a mic on.
in that image, as you look at it, just to the right of the central area, there's a little, where the cursor is now. Is that a swing?
Yeah, this is a double swing with kind of like an ADA style swing and a toddler swing.
Okay.
So Scott, my question is could things be shifted around just a hair so that you have 2 bucket swings there?
Absolutely, yeah.
Meaning 2
Yeah,
bucket swings
so-
in addition to the, what do you call it, the ADA swing?
Yeah, so this could be a three house swing. So this can slightly be shifted. If you look at rotating this counterclockwise a little bit, this is no longer going to be here. So you could totally move that to where then you could have 3 swings here, be it 2 toddler buckets and 1 ADA. And then over here you have your 2 ADA kind of it's not ADA. These ones are kind of like your mommy and me, daddy and me. They're with a parent. So you have an older child with a toddler swing on this side, and I can show you on the concept, but basically a parent sits here and a toddler sits here. And then these ones are just your basic regular 2 swings. And these are concept strictly just thrown in here. All of these are interchangeable for whatever we want the actual swing to be.
Okay. And then let's see here, there's that climbing tower, which I don't think people
Yeah,
were really interested in. I think we can think about what we might be able to do to either shift things around or utilize the equivalent space for something else.
yeah,
Whether it's additional seating or picnic area or additional play features.
I
yep,
think
yeah.
some other kind of play
Um,
system.
So here, I'm gonna try and,
I would suggest that, I would think we should figure out whether we want this central or peripheral design first, right?
well, my suggestion is that we actually come up with one of each.
Yeah, okay.
And let the public provide input as to what they like.
Yeah, okay.
It's a suggestion of, I mean, it's up to you as to how you, whether you want to make that decision now, or if you want to have the options for people to provide opinions on.
Well,
This,
I would prefer just in my aged decrepit body, I've got a group of grandkids that I'm gonna start chasing in another year and a half or so. I think the central would be a whole lot better than having me on one end and having me to run the little passages down the whole way. I would much rather just run them down halfway. That would be better.
Yeah, because another option is actually, we talked about potentially flipping locations
Yeah.
of toddler versus adult.
Right.
You can theoretically either relocate or minimize that keeping something there, but just not as large and kind of shifting its location. This pretty much keeps it where it's at.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing I like is the large kitty litter box or sandbox, whatever you want to call it. And that's good.
Well, yeah, is it really gonna be a sandbox or will it be like now where it just sort of moves in?
Sand-
Okay,
yeah.
so there's.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, the one that is drawn in here,
It's the bar.
it is.
Way too
like,
small.
I'll call it like, it looks like a playpen
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
so it's
yeah.
just really tiny.
Way too small.
We need something large enough that makes it worthwhile. And I think what Scott was suggesting is pretty much kind of, we have what used to be the water play area that can be repurposed and merged in with the little kid area in this picture. I'm having trouble finding my annotate feature.
yeah. Yeah, it's up on. Do you guys see the screen right now?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, this area, this
Yeah.
area here could be repurposed using the already curbing that's there.
Yeah.
Taking out this one, and we can make it to where the PIP is positioned to where it's not really a sandbox, it's a sand pit. It's an area where you walk into the sand off of the PIP. We would put PIP strategically here because of the mulch or the wood chips to the sand just is not a good combo.
Yeah, so the other thing is, what I was thinking with this is that you can extend it, you can make it a bigger one. Scott suggested, like the seated digger equipment could be there for the kids to have, a toy
yeah, yeah.
to do that, in addition to just having to bring your own bucket and shovels and stuff.
Yeah, the landscape structure concept had some good, had a sand table with a little shade structure thing. And a little like sand scoopers that they, use with their hands and scoop the sand, kind of like a dump truck, and move it around.
Yeah, the central area, seating area is good. It gives the parents and nannies a chance to they can socialize with each other while they watch their children.
Yeah, and like I said, it's, the seating and the shade structure are going to be interchangeable in terms of whether you want benches or you want picnic table. And then again, the type of shade structure, whether that's a shade sail or the four post, or if you want a wood structure is also another option. I think we have a wood trellis now.
Yeah.
And so again, kind of figuring out what that thematic element is and how you want things to tie together.
So Scott's comments at the beginning were my comments. I don't know if anybody else got them, but he did a quite good job summarizing my comments. And I looked at this and I thought this is a fairly small area in total. So I thought that central area could be used for swings, as he has in concept 2, I think it is, the other concept. And the benches were important, and a table in with the little guys so that Frank doesn't have to chase them outside. But to have it outside is a use of space, and we have to decide that. So I liked his other concept where the center area was actually used as a playground, and we spaced out both benches and frankly, I think all the eating could be around the outside of the park. But anyway, that's kind of what my initial.
I think we can, what I was suggesting earlier is that we show both. We have one that's like this and another one, like you suggest, either eliminating or significantly reducing the footprint area that's being occupied by that seating or entry area. I think you're going to need an entry area just to kind of get in. And so even with this concept here where you have those swings, I think you're going to need to put in, whether it's via PIP or curbing and something else, something that comes off of the DG pathway and into that play area. Kind of
And
where,
this,
yeah, right where, right between the pathway and the swings.
Where the
Um,
cursor is.
Where the cursor is there, yeah.
yeah,
So the April meeting, we're gonna work toward having two conceptual playgrounds to choose from, basically.
We're gonna be working in that direction to get
Okay,
them.
okay.
yeah, and this one is that other concept of more of an open plan. Don't get too stuck on, equipment and where it's placed per se, like this, this swing set being directly in the middle. I don't really think that's the best. But this is your open plan. There's not a central seating area. It does give you, this is a bigger structure. It does give you more room, but I really do think based off the survey that a lot of people are not as receptive to drastic change. And from the survey, there was a number of comments and enough that made it clear that they did like that central seating area, or that they did like a shaded seating area. So this does though give another idea, which I do think we should have two separate concepts and kind of make those, perfect those how we feel, and then kind of do a outreach, community outreach, and these are the two option changes. Which ones do you like kind of meeting?
So for the benefit of the committee members, Scott, if we were to go with something like this, how would we fence off the little kids area?
Yeah, so this would have to be moved around a little bit on the equipment, but which is easy to do. And this can be moved over. Fencing can still be put all through here and come straight across. The PIP will really delineate and show you kind of, like we talked about, an entrance in. Yeah, it can, everything is movable in there to where we can create a concept that has a fenced off younger kid area, and it looks uniform.
Yeah, and I didn't, just to explain, I wasn't thinking that necessarily it had to be swings. I just thought, looking at the square footage,
Yeah,
maximizing the space, particularly where you have these problems of fall zones or whatever you call them, that I would just like to look at a concept that had that. And as I mentioned, it would be great to have a schematic that actually shows the fence around it
Mhm.
and, you know, and where the sand would be. Maybe that's the next step. So that'd be great.
That's where we're headed.
yeah. Yeah, and the goal is our subcommittee meeting on Wednesday of next week. It sounds like we're getting direction to where we will have those, to where we'll have this concept kind of set up to show you, similar to what we had already shown you. We'll tweak it and make it based off the comments we've heard from last meeting and this meeting, as well as we'll have a concept with this one and incorporating those comments that we're receiving.
I'll look back, but I don't recall there was any overwhelming desire to keep that central area. I thought it was, give us shade and give us a place to sit and give us a bathroom. That was what
Yeah.
I regarded as the primary thrust of all this, with, of course, some other suggestions along the way.
But if you've got kids
Yeah.
in both age groups and the seating is on the edge, you're gonna give up on one set of kids. You
Yeah.
can't watch both kids from the edge.
Yeah, and the other aspect is the more spread out you have your seating.
If I sit along the side, I could see both sets of kids.
I don't think so.
It,
I do it all the time. Somebody who's young and somebody I did all the time. Yeah. No, I don't, it's fine with me. I don't care how you do it, as long as.
well, I think we'll
everybody's
get,
comfortable.
we'll give both options and we'll get that feedback. Like I said, if, my thing about not having, centralized seating or congregated seating, it doesn't have to be in the middle, is that you can utilize one shade structure to provide shade for more than one bench. And the more spread out it is, the harder it is to provide the seated shade. But, so Scott, on this, you have enough?
Yeah, I do. I think we definitely have enough to get those concepts recreated for Wednesday.
Can we jump to some of those feature sets, like the different shade structure types?
Yep.
To kind of get, just generic feedback on,
Yeah,
couple
so,
of different options that we should provide so that the public can provide feedback as we develop those concepts.
yep, yeah, so these are some of the links that we provided in the email back to you guys. It just kind of goes through and has different features. It has a single pole kind of umbrella style. And these can be made as big as necessary or as small as necessary to cover the area. So, you know, if you're looking at that central area and you have one post and a big one, or you have kind of like the landscape structures, I'll show you. But this one is, I don't think is something we would want in this application, but here's your hip style, kind of hip roof shades. It has the four corners and kind of goes up in the middle. These are kind of like your sail shades and has like triangular ones. It's kind of like what was on that concept with the central seating area with Game Time. It had two of them. This is from Game Time. You know, there's really just depends on kind of the style. If you want the shade style, you want a hip style, or you want an umbrella style. You know, there's a lot of different options. I know it can be overwhelming. This is that single pole one, where it kind of would come off on one side and it could shade, you know, that whole entire center area.
Scott, can I ask a durability question?
Yep.
How long do these shades, these things, these sail things or whatever they're called, how long do they generally last? 1 year, one season?
No, they last, you know, for an infrastructure replacement plan, usually every 10 years,
Okay.
you're supposed to replace them. And that goes with basically playgrounds altogether. technically you're supposed to every 10 years have a plan to start that process and replacing your playground and all your features and being these as well. The actual top part, the actual shade sun sail part, you know, it just depends on direct sunlight and how much of it and how long it lasts. But they are very durable. They do last a while.
Well, being that we haven't replaced the playground in 25 years, I guess we're a little behind. So,
And do all of these shade structures stay up when you're gonna have a big wind event? Or,
So in Florida, where I came from, you know, hurricanes and stuff like that, as soon as you got above a category 1, you were initiating your operation plan to have those taken down. And they're not hard. It was done in-house. I guess I shouldn't say it wasn't hard. I wasn't doing it, but they do get taken down for, you know, above a category 1. I don't foresee here in California that being an issue
I think we have.
on actually taking them down. They're very durable and they can withstand any type of
You know when
wind
the
that
next
really,
one's gonna
you know, we did, I guess I shouldn't say that. We did have a hurricane here in California recently.
Well, I just went and walked and I saw a lot of the well-anchored basketball hoops that have a lot of base on them blown over and smashed. And so I would be a little concerned. I mean, it's fine. We'll just tell Robert, and hey, I'm sure he'd love to do this. If there's a driving wind, you get out in the middle of the wind and you take care of this,
Well,
right? What's the warranty on these, Scott?
Yeah, every company is different, but there shouldn't be any issues on having to take these down, the shade or anything here in California.
But to be honest, I don't see taking them down very
I wouldn't think
often at
so.
all. I think it's gonna be if there's something that's projecting, you know,
Yeah.
100-mile-an-hour winds, then in advance of that, we might do it.
We're all gonna leave at that point.
But I don't
Yeah.
think that's gonna be, that's not a normal occurrence around here. And these things are, you know, they're anchored, what do you call it? They have concrete footings in the ground in terms of the posts and.
Yeah, and the actual
structure
shade
itself
part is
is
it's anchored with some bolts and tightening nuts that, you know, they tighten them to where it's like it's really stout. And you know, I can even, you know, for our subcommittee meeting, I'll have a spec on one of them to give you all that information and, you know, wind loads and how much they can handle up to how high and all that. You know, these playgrounds are all through Florida where they get category 2 hurricanes a good, you know, very often. And I will tell you from some municipalities over there, they don't take them down. It's not required and they're still up afterwards. It's more of, you know, an operational, you want to make sure that you're protecting your asset and you take them down.
Okay,
Is the price indicative also of the construction installation? No.
that's just buying it. And that doesn't.
That's just buying
include
it.
Shipping or
Okay.
tax. So,
Okay.
I mean, these are, we're looking at.
Does it cost
what
more
they
with
look-
more pylons or it's,
What I say, right now, don't worry about what it costs. We're trying to get at what it looks like.
okay,
And that can be, for example, that you want to have some cantilever type shade over certain parts of the playground.
Yeah.
But if we have that centralized seating area, you want a new wood pergola structure. Those are the
And-
kinds of feedback that we're trying to get at so that we can kind of come up with some of those options.
yeah, so it's in sort of very roughly, it seems to me there's kind of 3 different shade possibilities. One is what you use for that central seating area or other seating. 2 is on the playground structures. So some of them tend to have some kind of shade thing built in, but the shade is really important for the seating. And
Yeah.
then there's the smaller playground structures, not the big structure, and some of them have some kind of shade, but for the most part, from what I look at, unless you put in one of these little umbrella things, they don't tend to
Yeah.
have much shade.
Well, like I say, you have ones that are kind of built onto the structures, and then there's actually, I think some of the links that we showed, that we shared, actually have big shade structures that can either cover or partially cover a good chunk of equipment, so.
This is,
Yeah, and I'll say that the recommendation on our end is to have the shade, whatever shade style it is, where the people are sitting. So a central sitting area on the perimeters where that younger area is, maybe a couple of them that shade that area. The play structures, I think will save our money and not have them on the play structures. They have their own little kind of bridges and huts that they go in and play and things like that. I think that the survey was clear that the shade is more for the bystander parents that are sitting and watching.
Old people.
Yeah, I mean, I saw this like Rick. What I would say is, let's look at the play structure. I mean, you have that in one issue about, of course, people sitting there, the observers. But I look at the play structures and Rick's exactly right. I would make a decision based on how they fit with the play structure. You don't have to make it, and when I looked at your catalogs, I went through the catalogs online. And it was, rather than what Scott's showing now, which I found completely unhelpful, because it's too abstract.
Yeah.
But when you look at what he sent with the real pictures, that gives you a really good idea.
Yeah.
Of what, and I don't remember the survey, certainly it was the people sitting, but I think it was more basic than that. I think there's kids out there, we do rarely have a hot day, but over there it can get quite warm. So anyway, that's the way I see it. So I would
Scott,
like to
can you
see a
pull-
few
can you-
shades in there.
Can you open the USA shade link?
Yep. I think I did in here. No.
well, for
Hold
a
on.
centralized seating area, I kind of like that hip shade, the
Yeah.
big structure, that looked good.
So I'm asking him to open up one of the links that we sent out. And so here you can kind of see how there's some over structures
Yeah,
that are not part of the structures.
right.
And then if you scroll down a little more, like that middle one is kind of like that offset,
Yeah.
kind of two hip thing that could either be over a seating area or over a play structure as well. I wouldn't go as far as the one there on the right where you have something over everything, or even the one on the left. But these are less abstract. You can actually see kind of how they're put together, and the footprint of what you worry about there is what's the footprint of the structure versus how much shade you're getting, right? And so having one post cover a large area, you know, kind of allows you more flexibility in terms of your seating.
But my input would be, we don't need that. We don't need something that covers an entire play area.
Yeah.
That just from what I look at, and Scott, I mean, people can look at this one, that, you know, has little, like Rick is talking about. We certainly need something big enough over the people sitting.
Yeah,
But I mean, these kids have been playing over there for 20 years without anything covering them. So I don't think we need to cover the whole thing, but that, and plus the cost, I mean, I'd rather have cost used for the play.
I would say the small kids area definitely needs shade. I've had a lot of parent complaints that their kids get way too hot there.
About little kid stuff?
The little kids, yeah, there's no shade there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of sun on that side.
But in,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
some extent. So you're right, Alex. It's either a big thing or it's by individual play
Yeah.
or
yeah.
spots, yeah.
And
And,
the-
and it could be a combination, meaning that we have a big shade structure for, if we have the centralized seating area.
Yeah.
Have a big shade structure there, and then maybe,
Something
a
smaller.
couple of small ones over like the little kids area, and plant a big tree near, the benches.
that central area also has a couple big trees, so we probably don't want a overbearing
Share
shade
that.
structure.
And then I think a little more thought needs to be put in, if you don't have that centralized seating area, how are you gonna provide that shade that people are asking for?
Yeah. Hey, Scott, could you run down to the B's? Is that Beresford as in San Carlos, California? Right there on the right,
San Mateo.
San Mateo. Okay, I'm gonna go take a look at that.
Yeah, so before we move on to just looking at some of the furnishings, just out of curiosity where everyone's head's at, what kind of, if there is a central sitting area or there's not, and the shade is strategically put where necessary, how did we feel about shade sail versus umbrella, single post in the middle or post on the side, shading the whole thing? Do we have any kind of preference or thought, or are we thinking more of like a pergola there?
Well, in your initial shade images, you showed a couple, one hipped and one not hipped, I think one just flat.
Yeah,
To those.
yeah, let me see. Can't get to him with that control there.
Yeah.
Was that out of this one?
No, the one before this, yeah, that. So that one on the right, that one.
Yeah,
Why don't you click that, Scott?
so it kind of gives you a lot of different ones. And this is your 4 posts. In our case, it'd be 4 posts and it would kind of, go up at the top.
Okay.
Did you want everyone to give an opinion and then, okay, I mean, I'm not particular to any design, whatever is less expensive. I think shade is shade, and as long as it doesn't look ugly, it's fine with me.
I would agree with Alex's assessment. I don't think I think if the hip is a lot more expensive, we could probably, if these things last for 8-10 years, whatever, I think we'd get away with whatever it is, sail type or something.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not set in stone on what it is, but no, I a cup
I didn't see a number on the hip type as far as how much they cost.
cost.
Yeah,
Well, I say, once we get these concepts laid out, then we'll be able to kind of get pricing, approximate.
I think if we need to save money, we'd save money on the shade structure. For sure, would be my thought.
Yeah, okay. And then when it comes to the furnishings of the benches and the like picnic tables and those types of things, there were a couple comments came back from the committee, like I had said earlier, that were to keep it uniform throughout the park on whatever the benches are and the trash cans and those types of things. There's a load of different styles. There's log styles that are natural look. There's, the
Scott, excuse me, could you go
Yeah.
back to the shade? You have one here, concept 2. Could you bring that up on the screen so people could see that?
bring concept to the actual concept image.
No, you have,
The
it's called
sail
Holbrook-
thing that you've
Holbrook
got here.
So from the
Concept 2
slide
has a
deck,
big
yeah,
yellow
so that-
shade. Yeah, it's kind of like what you're seeing right there.
Yeah, so that's the shade sail type structure.
Well, I just,
Yeah.
and what
That
I
is
asked,
four posts, correct? Yeah, that's 4.
I mean, I
posts.
kind
Yeah.
of like the concept of breaking it a little bit rather than just a big tent.
Yeah.
So what I was going to ask you is if you could look at what the cost would be of that.
Yeah,
This one seems
Yeah.
to have 4 poles.
and it very well could be, it would look nice with something like this, and then having maybe your single standalone pole umbrella ones, overshading these areas.
Yeah, okay.
But this is where we were talking about kind of fencing in along there and coming around. This would be the sand area, and the fence would run down this kind of change.
So I'm gonna ask the committee's opinion about the new picnic tables that were put in right outside for the picnic area right outside of the children's area. Because if we're trying to match things, I
Yeah.
want to know, is
I-
that the
I
kind of
haven't
style?
seen it yet, so
Okay.
I'll have to take a look next time I'm out there.
So if you could take a look at that, the stuff that we just put in with the circulation plan. Because if we're close by and if it's a decent enough looking, decent enough, I mean, if it matches the aesthetic that you're looking for, then we can kind of just copy some of that.
Where is it
stuff.
again? Is
It's the
Where
the reservable picnic area that's right next to the playground.
reservable? Okay.
It's,
as you're looking toward the street.
if you look
to
at the
right.
tree on the right, it's like right there.
Oh, that, okay.
Used to be.
Oh, okay,
So-
where the, okay.
I mean, it's called the children's picnic area is what it's called on the reservation system.
Okay.
You know, when we reserve it, you know, we have 2 day use picnic areas. One is the North Meadow and the other we call the children's picnic area.
Oh, okay.
It used to be, closer to, I don't know if you remember the big tree that
Yeah.
came
yeah,
down. It used to be there.
Okay.
And then we relocated it.
To the other
and
trees that are
and
still-
improved it
Okay.
with the circulation
I'll
project.
just take a look around that area and see
Yeah.
which ones look new. Okay.
I
Um,
can't remember, Robert, do we have any memorial benches in the park or just?
We do.
Yes.
We do, right? So, I mean, I was thinking, should we,
Sure we do.
but I'm saying, do we have, I can't remember if we have one style or if we have multiple.
Well,
pretty
we,
much
we
have
have,
One, don't we?
we have
pretty
a
much.
couple and it's the wood style bench. And I thought that
Did
a
it down
few
by the
years
tennis court,
ago,
you'll see
the
one.
committee went through and
Yeah.
created the donation policy and had
We did.
the
So I'm
bench
wondering,
right-
what I'm getting at is with the benches that we're putting in, should we make those memorial type different just because of they're different? for-
Well, these won't be memorial benches.
I know, I'm
These-
just saying, but style wise, should there be any connection or no? I don't know. I'm asking the question.
I think we have flexibility. If you want them to be like that, they certainly can be. If you want them to be more befitting the actual playground, you can do that too.
I like the idea of using uniform, but I agree if it doesn't fit the theme, then, then it's a no-brainer. But these ones here, not this color, but this style of a bench is a common one. And it's this rubber kind of steel with rubber plated, and it's got the seat with the bench on it, which was shown in one of the concepts, are really durable and they can be brown.
Well,
They're kinda like your
Scott, I
standard
think that the ones that we have in the picnic area are a little more natural looking. I mean, I think they're made out of recycled plastic, but they are, I think more of the aesthetic that folks are gonna be looking for. We have one
Okay.
of those right now in the children's playground,
Okay.
that kind that you were just showing.
Okay.
I
I was
would say
trying
a
to,
mix- a mix of benches and picnic tables is
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Scott? Do you have enough for getting stuff set for next week's meeting?
Yep, absolutely. And that's what, we'll have that for Wednesday. I'll get working on that right away, and then we can kind of discuss it in our Wednesday meeting and go from there, ready for the next advisory board meeting.
Great. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Can you send out a reminder for the Wednesday meeting? I don't think I
For
have
the
it on my-
subcommittee?
Yeah, I
I
don't
think it's
have
at
it on
1
my-
o'clock.
It's okay,
Yeah.
1 PM Wednesday. Okay.
Okay.
Scott,
Yep.
for Wednesday, could you do a kind of a mock-up so we could see where the fence would be? How big the sand is? We have we have a much larger area of sand now than what you're proposing, I
Yeah.
believe, but I'd just like to
Well,
get an
that-
idea in perspective.
Yeah, no, we definitely will in the concept. They didn't want to use up a lot of the space for updated play equipment with a massive sand area. I think that sand area that we'll see in the concept should be enough room with a couple little sand features in there. But that'll definitely be on the concept 1, and concept 2 will be more of, like we talked about, open plan.
Well, remember, we have playthings in the sand. That's where this great
Yeah.
train is. I love the train that's there, which I
Yep.
guess you're going to abandon. But, you know, playthings could be in the sand unless you say that that's the wrong
Well,
base. for the-
there, I think the sand play equipment was like the digging machines and that, those kinds of stuff, as well as an additional area for doing stuff. I think, there is an ADA issue when it comes to sand, and so having a big play structure in the sand, or medium play structure in the sand may be an issue. But Scott can work all that up and we'll
Well-
have stuff on Wednesday.
I mean, the train right now.
I think it's on the
there's
rubber,
a-
isn't it?
It's on sand, but it's not in the sand area. The sand area is totally separate.
So this right here is that area. Obviously, this is more brought in. We would use the whole border area. But this is something that's like a sand feature. You put sand in here. These are little circle areas that have a hole in it. The sand falls right back through, and there's like a little bucket system here that you fill up. And these are little sand scoopers. So you sit on it, you use your hands back and forth, and this little kind of like a backhoe goes down, digs the sand up, and kind of they rotate and can throw it over on this side and build like like a tower. But those are a couple of little sand features that could be thrown in there to play with.
Before we leave the subject, just want to see if we have any public comments.
Ken Frederick from Lindenwood, a question for you. First, kind of a process thing. In the council meetings, I can ask questions, but can't get an answer. Is that true here as well? So I can pose a question, but I've got no response. Is that right? All right.
Yes,
Okay, just want to, sorry, make sure.
but you can ask your question
No, no, so
anyway.
it's like being at home.
And,
It's okay.
and
Now-
one of us may ask the same question.
Now I understand it's like me being at home and not a problem. So the question I have is a process question. I'm trying to figure out whether the train has left the station and by definition, the town will spend $1.2 million on this project as stated of only being for a children's playground. Because of one of the council meetings recently, we talked about this. I thought, maybe I heard it incorrectly. I heard some discussion saying, well, we should also consider other things that might be in the park recreation area beyond child play items. That was my understanding, but maybe I'm wrong. I'll come back and ask off the record sometime about that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Okay, why don't we move on to 5C. We're missing 5B. Pickleball trial update.
Apologies. Well, the trial is ongoing now. Weather obviously has had an impact or is having an impact generally on use of the tennis courts. It's been rather wet this past month. But there is some usage, a little bit of increase from last month. And in speaking with Player Capital Tennis, they're actually getting some inquiries as to whether or not they will be able to provide lessons. And so they're
they'll be
thinking
able to
about
Provide,
pickleball lessons.
oh,
And so he's thinking about that. We're gonna have some conversation about it. And we'll need to figure out what those windows are because we don't want to necessarily take away public hours for him to give lessons.
Mhm.
And at the same time, if he's going to be taking court one for lessons, and we need to make sure another court is open for the public use for tennis. Right? So,
Yeah,
so that's going to be an ongoing conversation. One of the reasons why I have this on the agenda is for the conversation to start as to how is success going to be measured? Are we going to do any surveys of users or the public as to what their thoughts are on how it's going and getting feedback? And so, don't need that now, but I would like to actually get that conversation started next month.
Okay. Can the subcommittee meet to start putting some ideas together and then bring that? to the-
We're happy to set up a subcommittee meeting.
Okay, okay.
And
And then we'll
so-
discuss at the next
Yeah,
meeting.
so is that subcommittee Julie and Noah, or is
Yeah.
it?
And
And,
Was a third
the
person.
woman who's gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tricia.
Yeah.
all right, so we have two. Is there a desire for a third? Otherwise, I can leave it at the two of them. That's fine.
That's, I'm already on a subcommittee, so.
Okay.
There's a
That's fine.
third
So I
member that
will,
wants
I
to
will
join.
reach
We
out
can-
to them to kind of start thinking about the
I don't
kinds
know,
of
Bob,
questions.
are you interested or?
To ask, and it's gonna be,
Okay, okay.
okay.
I think we do need some way of determining whether pickleball is a good thing. I mean, that can be number of people play and people enjoy it.
Mhm.
I've only been over there twice, but pickleball is played and I got a good feeling about it. Couple years. But there was as much noise from the player. When they actually,
Yeah. So the other item I did want to mention is that we did order the baffling material. It is stockpiled right now in Dublin at MCE's yard over there. And so we were targeting, Will, correct me if I'm wrong, end of April for the installation,
Okay.
which will give time for folks to actually play when the weather's a little better before we put that in.
And then,
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that we want to let play actually happen, try and be able to measure some of that sound before we put that.
and then we
baffling
can
in.
do it before and after this, we have that sound measuring equipment, so we can do it before and
Yeah,
after.
and it's there, it's recording constantly, and we can download. If there's a volunteer to do the data analysis, we can certainly use that support.
Like a summer intern.
Where do we get the
Actually, we
data?
might have, we have an opening now for an intern.
Where would
if
the data
anybody
come
knows.
from? I mean, do you have it on the computer or?
Yeah. There's
reading- A reading by minute?
Here, I'll try and pull it up and share.
Because you mentioned last time the decibel count anyway, I think.
So here.
Bob, your experience when you were there and they were playing pickleball was, what was it in terms of the noise? I mean, I hear that it was
Yeah,
as
it
noisy
was-
hitting the ball as the people interacting.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
hitting the ball is hitting the ball. I mean, you know what that noise is. They'll measure that noise. We'll see what it is. I have to admit that you get a little bit used to it as more people were hitting. There was 4 people on the court.
Okay, so I am sharing my screen now. We have 2 devices. One is on the Little League building and the other is on the at the clay court.
Mhm.
And so basically, I need to move this out of
This,
the way.
No one,
So this is from yesterday to today. We can look at. Let's pick the last week in February. Into March, okay. So here's kind of that picture. And so what you have is you have your highs, your lows, and your average.
and is it blocking out the train noise or is this? How do we tell?
Blocking out, it's measuring noise.
Okay, so
Okay.
train. may
And so it is picking up the trains. The trains now were, I think, quieter.
Yeah,
Um,
one direction, but.
No, both directions.
No.
Well, I mean, when they get to the park, they can start blowing after Watkins.
Yeah,
Because
after
it's coming.
Watkins going towards Encinal.
Yeah, going to Ansel, correct, yeah.
Yeah, but then after they leave Encinal coming,
Yeah, they should stop after they
Yeah.
leave Ensenal, yeah.
so it should
Be a
come
less,
down
yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit in the park.
Okay.
But this here is during that period of time when train noise was happening.
Okay.
We can, you know,
I'm
we
sorry,
can be
Robert,
selective
I
on the
missed that.
dates.
When do they stop blowing the horn? Looks to
Well-
me like they're done down there.
Officially, the quiet zone became effective on the first of the month.
Right. And they have to blow the horn within a quarter mile of Encinal.
Oh,
So
going the
when-
other
when they're-
direction.
when they're
Going
going
southbound.
south, a quarter mile before Encinal, they'll blow their horn, which that's probably about the park, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about
I'm gonna say, it used to be
Middle of the park.
going southbound, it used to be in our middle of our parking lot going towards Watkins is when they
Right.
would start
I
blowing.
know that one.
And so that, and then also after they cross Watkins, the horn for Encinal.
Yeah.
And then coming northbound, they were blowing it after Encinal towards Watkins.
But I missed it. How far south of the park will it be? Still opposite the park to blow for Encinal?
A quarter mile, about a quarter mile from Encinal,
I got that.
going southbound.
Right,
they're
but
gonna
how
blow
far
it.
is a quarter of a mile from Encinal compared to
far
that
is it?
Watkins intersection?
Okay.
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to measure that. and
Okay.
get that
And,
for you.
and it's probably rough too, because they're not doing
You're
exactly.
right, we
yeah.
got those engineers to.
That, it's like, as soon as they pass Watkins, they probably
Yeah, right.
can start blowing if they
Um,
want, yeah.
So like I said, I mean, this here, we
And
can
excuse me,
export
secondly,
the
Robert,
data.
I asked the question.
Yeah.
So if you look at this graph, you would have to then what? Look and see when players had reserved the court.
Yeah.
Assuming that they really showed up or go be there during the morning. Isn't that the way we'd have to do it? And then we'd have to look for sharp increases for the train whistle?
Well,
And
I mean, the,
Yeah,
the,
I'm gonna say it's not an easy thing. It's
Yeah.
not something that I have the time to do. That's why I was looking for a volunteer. This
Sure.
stuff can get exported into an Excel sheet. The reservations are visible online for the tennis courts. And we can see when those are, but you can see by this graph that most of this is not pickleball.
yeah, yeah, if you drill down, is it taking a measurement? It's just taking continuous measurements, is that correct? So it's,
Yeah, more
Okay.
or less. It's like
Right.
interval, I
okay,
guess.
so I
So
think if
here,
you,
I'll pick one day.
yeah, and
Um,
maybe drill down into an hour of that day, you could probably see,
so if I go,
See it better.
Monday to Tuesday, right? So you can see this a little better. Here is overnight. This peak here is gonna be the train noise because
Yeah.
nobody's playing at 1 o'clock in the morning. Right? And it's fairly quiet, and then you get another hit at 5, at 6. So a lot of these peaks are likely the train,
yeah.
whether it's blaring the horn or just riding by because the trains aren't exactly quiet right now.
Can you get to, just have the grass spread out over half an hour instead of doing the whole day?
Well, this, I'm gonna say, you can export the data.
Oh, you
and
have to
get it.
export it in our, okay, so this.
This is
visualization
just
only-
visualizing
Okay.
things and you can see where that noise level peaks out on
Okay.
here is above 75 decibels.
Okay,
Okay. Um,
I mean, this is to see what noise you're getting or you're measuring it, right? But you can't compare pickleball noise to train noise.
one more time.
So you can't compare pickleball noise to train noise.
I'm gonna say, I can't,
I mean, it's, you
I can't segregate it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't segregate it, but you also can't compare a continuous noise,
Uh-huh.
which comes from pickleball. It's continuous.
I think once you drill,
With a train noise, which is very incontinuous.
No, and that's what I'm saying is that if you look at
comes and
the,
gone.
I think that what you can look at is drilling, somebody can drill down and say between 9 and noon on this particular Tuesday, it was 3 hours worth of pickleball play. And you can compare that with 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday when you had 3 hours of tennis play. And
and,
be able to compare that. You'll have the peaks from the train.
Yeah, and the
which will
train,
be which will be peaks.
and the train horn's very distinctive in terms of the pattern that you're supposed to be using. Even if it's not, it's only like
Yeah.
5 to 10 seconds worth of sound
So
and.
I don't, you're not getting down to the second on this,
Okay.
right? It's,
I mean, depending how they measure it. Well, I mean, but you can see, you probably know the approximate times when they're gonna cross, and then you can just, let's just eliminate
so
this.
for the fun, I'm just gonna go ahead and
Okay.
download this.
So maybe ask the subcommittee if they want to
They
analyze the
want to
data.
analyze it?
Yeah, if not, I'm not sure what we'll do. We'll.
Okay.
Think
Here
about
you
it.
go. So here are
Hey,
the,
Robert, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Please remind me, do the pickleball players buy exactly the same key
Yep.
that the tennis?
yep,
Okay, so we can't measure really how many pickleball players have taken out keys because,
we've asked the person selling to ask, they don't always ask, but if somebody is only playing pickleball, it should be discernible that they're only reserving court 1 during those hours.
Yeah,
Uh,
because you can match the specific person doing the reservation, right?
we'd have to ask Mike to query his system.
It has a name on it though.
It does, but you'd have to like
Oh, go
through.
through each, okay.
and see, okay, well, did this person only reserve court 1 during this hour versus
yeah.
court 3?
Another data analysis.
Yeah.
You don't, you don't have to reserve it.
But
That's true too.
so
don't
you
have to-
can
you don't
see
have to.
here, these are, probably, 6-7 minute intervals in a lot of
of them, though.
cases. Um,
I don't see.
It's not
you don't have to
sharing.
reserve court.
I
Just play.
apologize, I'm
You
showing the
also
wrong
got a
screen.
continuous noise versus a small time of noise. Okay, the train is a small time. It comes, it goes, you could stop playing
Yeah.
during it.
Okay,
With noise and it wouldn't even bother you. A pickleball,
So-
you can't, it's continuous.
okay, so this isn't,
That's not comparison, that's not a comparison of whether it is a problem or not. May not be.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, we'll survey the other tennis players before the trial ends to get their overall assessment.
Yeah, I mean, but you can also play pickleball and anytime you want, if you have a key.
Yeah, that's true. Well, but if there's another reservation for the tennis court,
I've asked them, they have no reservation.
okay.
well, there's only,
They have no reservation. They just play because nobody's playing.
But if someone has a reservation, they would be able to have the right to play over the pickleball
Yes,
players.
of
who
course they
don't.
would.
Yeah.
But we haven't had that problem.
Okay.
We might.
Well,
It might,
Well, we'll
but
get-
when the weather gets better, it might get
yeah,
more of a thing to determine.
yeah,
So the two players would say, wait, do you have a reservation? I do, then the one with the reservation plays.
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and like I said, this is what we want to know how to measure success or,
Yeah.
What the issues might be. What are, what are the thoughts of the tennis players versus pickleball players? Those are all questions that need to be asked.
Okay.
And so I hear, you have it on the screen now.
Oh.
It's approximate. I was sharing it incorrectly.
I see it's every 7 minutes. it looks
Something like 6-7 minute intervals and you get I think it's a minimum value, a maximum value
Oh, okay.
and an average, I guess.
Okay,
And this is when what happens?
These are the sound levels in decibels.
Sound level. So you don't know which ones are the train and which ones are the pickleball. Okay.
we'll just have to exclude the times when the train passes.
Hmm?
We kind of know the train schedule, so we'll have to maybe exclude the times when the trains pass as measurement times.
Mhm.
So,
And the time that they go by is a short time,
Yeah, it's a 7 minute interval, so
continuous.
we'll just have to take the measurements outside that 7 minute interval in which the train
Yeah,
passes.
but it's not just the size of the noise,
It's the continuous
the
noise.
continuous noise.
Yeah.
And if you put two pickleball like they did on court 1, you get a continuous noise. Somebody's always hitting the ball. That doesn't happen in tennis, that doesn't happen with the train. How you just have to determine what that means, and that's part of the whole survey thing.
Yeah.
It may mean you have to get used to it. Okay, it might mean that, but, it's gonna be very different.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. And getting a number doesn't really tell you the whole story.
Okay,
That's fair.
I take it, Robert, you can't go over physically and see the reading on these devices,
no,
because that would be the real.
it looks like a smoke detector.
Can you take a computer over and see that? Because the real test will be to be there right when people are playing. And have an
It's
exact
not, I'm
time.
gonna say that it measures, it sends it somewhere, and then you'll see it. It's not, if you want,
Instantaneous.
it's not instantaneous.
Okay.
You know, I mean, there's a bunch of measurement devices that if you wanted instantaneous, you could get.
Well, the real thing to do then would be, I think, to have somebody over there, write down exactly the times when people are playing. And then have some sort of correlation you might be able to make.
Thank you for volunteering.
Noah will do it.
Is,
I will
is he a neutral source?
Yeah, well, that's right. I guess we'd have to double check it.
I will say there was no question in the one that I was playing tennis on, the pickleball players were really having a good time. There was no question. They were shouting and hooting and really having a good time. And no, they weren't even drinking. That was, that's a good thing for pickleball players.
So,
Before we close this out, is there any public comment? No? Okay. So we'll revisit this after the subcommittee makes some recommendations. We'll talk more in April.
all right,
Capital improvement.
we'll call this 5C. instead of
5C, okay, capital improvement. Oh, yeah, you missed D.
So we have started the generic budget discussions with the council, actually this afternoon. Starting with the operating budget, we will start discussions with the council on the capital program in May.
Okay.
And so just wanted to cover the top couple of items that the committee has talked about so that we can try and work those recommendations towards the council. The first one obviously is finishing off the project that we've got. The second is, I think, the bathroom replacement potentially.
Do we need to, so that first project, do we need to have a budget done by May or it'll just the playground project? I assume that's the project you're referring
Well,
to.
yeah, so we have an outline budget that the council has programmed out.
Yes,
Not paid for not allocated money for the second year yet,
yes.
but it is in the forecast.
Do we need to have a bid by the time they?
No, what
Okay.
what we are working with is we'll get Scott to refine the estimate a little bit between
Okay,
now and then.
Okay, so that they can make a.
So that
determination
we
amount.
can see where we are and hopefully be within the budget that the council has
Okay.
kind of outlined for the project. Same time, asking Scott to give us numbers on what the bathroom stuff will look like. And then the third item that we have is, there's a third and then there's a fourth. The third one is, I think the Jennings Pavilion,
Yeah.
flooring, painting, refresh, lighting and that kind of thing. And then the fourth one is something that's, I'm gonna call it park adjacent, and that is the resiliency item that the council put on the forward look last year for solar and potentially battery for the pavilion.
I'm not
So
sure that was a recommendation we specifically.
that wasn't from
Okay.
here, that was from the council.
Okay. Is the fence project gonna be done this year or is
The
it?
fence
The Watkin-
along Watkins.
Yeah,
No, that's fallen behind.
okay. But it's still on the budget. it
It's
just
still
needs-
on the,
Okay.
but it's budgeted.
Budget, okay, so we don't have to ask for it, it'll eventually get done, okay, cool. Okay, so your question for the committee is,
Did I capture those
I
correctly?
believe so, yeah, okay, but I will let other
Um,
committee members also.
And
chime in.
then, I would say you can solicit public comment
Okay,
on park,
Now you're scared.
other park improvements
Okay.
that can be considered.
Okay.
Is there a priority on the three that are up for discussion? Is there
You
a
can tell
priority?
me what you think where your priorities are, and you may want to, like I said, you can pick when you select your public comment.
Okay. Do you want to provide your priority, Bob, or?
Well, you know, the Jennings Pavilion is gonna get us more income. Okay, so I will put that as a high priority. I've heard nothing but complaints about the playground bathrooms. I would put that second, and I would put the refurbishment, if those are the three I have, third,
The refurbishment of,
of the playground, of the actual, what we talked
Oh,
about
so-
tonight, which we spent a lot of
okay.
time on tonight, talking about how we were gonna lay it out. I said, that's just the way I would put the priorities in terms of it getting done.
and what do you suggest for the pavilion?
Well, they said there's a Jennings Pavilion refurbishment. The main thing there is the floor. I don't know what else is in that one. but
I
the
think
main
we
one is
said
the
that the
floor.
things were the flooring, the lighting,
There is some
the
lighting, yeah,
chandeliers, replacing those
yeah.
and repainting interior.
That's in a project, right? That's written down, I think. But it's the.
No, this is
floor-
what we had talked
Oh,
about
Okay, oh, it is.
here.
I-
It's not a
I remember
gap
the
we-
flooring, but I didn't remember the painting or the chandeliers, but
Okay,
And the walls were criticized too. I think that was.
That's the
Julie's
painting.
thought.
Oh, to paint,
Thing
okay.
need to be
okay.
upgraded a little, yeah.
I would agree with Bob's assessment that the pavilion seems to be our biggest income generator, it could be, and it seems to be where we're lagging at the moment, so.
I'm not sure how much income we can generate in kind of the new kind of COVID era where there's gonna be fewer events.
I don't know,
So
but I think,
that's kind of that's my kind of big question mark, whether to invest significantly more into Jennings, that's all.
well, I don't know, I think, I would think that weddings and those things are gonna happen, COVID or otherwise, and I
Yeah.
think if the biggest complaint we got for the last couple of years was the floor and the look of Jennings Pavilion. So I think that would be my suggestion, number one.
Okay, okay.
Number one and maybe number one and number two.
Well, do you
I'm
feel the
not
same?
sure we can find out until we try.
Correct.
So, I mean, you can say that. I do see somebody, we finally got a rental there that somebody's renting the main house and Jennings. There's a lot of meetings. I think people are being the other direction. They're not so COVID.
Okay.
I mean, we have a problem in that we looked like hell while we were doing the circulation plan. So we've got to really catch up. And without marketing and things, so we don't have anybody doing that. So anyway, I think I agree with Frank.
Okay.
Let's give it a try. I mean, you can do a fairly minimal in the sense of, let's get a nice floor in there. And then maybe the lights, but we have to do something. This is the first time I've ever seen, we have zero income from that park this month, zero. Not one rental, not anything, as far as I read this.
I think we've got a problem with.
Yeah, because Cater 2 is no longer
Yeah.
doing that
exactly.
marketing. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Catering companies left and there's,
yeah, well, we have a temp kind of.
yeah, but I mean, it's not, the whole juju on it.
Yeah, no,
doesn't seem to
there's
be.
no marketing going
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
So the consensus is put Jennings first and then bathrooms and playground after.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll take that information and we'll share it with the council.
And then
Um,
Well, I'm
public
not-
comment or?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the consensus and not my view. My view is the bathroom is number one.
Okay.
Everybody mentioned, many people mention that over and over again. And of course, Jennings, different principle entirely. But if we're gonna have a beautiful playground, I'd rather have a decent bathroom.
So,
too. I would put that number one.
I agree with you on the bathrooms.
Okay.
I guess bathrooms and Jennings probably equal, but neck and neck. Ken, go ahead.
Two comments. One on the Jennings Pavilion. Recently had a conversation with a well-known wedding planner, Isabella, that might be a name that Walt remembers. And she claims that there's a dearth of places you can really go for weddings nowadays. And that amazingly, people are getting married. And so I think you gotta look at Jennings as a kind of a, what should it be? And I think there's kind of two steps. One is immediately it should be just freshened. Just immediately. Don't worry about structure or anything, just freshen it. That's probably the floor and the painting and stuff. And then step back and say, boy, is there a second step? Where it should really be better, but that's a longer plan, but freshen it now. The other thing is, there's still a town survey gonna be done. And the original thought I had, but hasn't been shared much, is that we would, and part of that survey would be, what do the residents want done with the park? You know, it's been a while since the residents were asked about the park. It's been 10 years or more. The question is, can we get a better view now of what they think? The residents have changed, things have changed. What should they view as the park? So could we get a bigger view of the park?
Yeah.
The problem with that survey is now I see it's gonna be, you won't get the results for over a year. And I personally don't find that acceptable. It'd be nice to get some survey results before then, before you wait a year to decide what the priorities are to be for the park. So I think the whole park's the priorities of the park, I think are a bigger issue that we ought to be thinking about. We ought to try to find a way to use that survey to do it. Anyway, it's just my thought.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Any other comments about the capital improvement plan? If not, we can move to 5F, Brightview Quality Site Assessments. Are there any,
Attach your report.
is there any
attached to the
questions or
agenda.
comments on this? Anything notable staff wants to point out, or nothing of note this month?
No, I think it's, we had, I'm gonna say the item that's not gonna be on here is that we had a rental event at the North Meadow, day use permit over the weekend. And there's a bit of damage to the lawn area from that rental.
Okay,
And so we're looking at getting that repaired and gonna see if we can't go after the vendor that caused the damage to get reimbursed.
Is it in North Meadow?
Yeah. Somebody put up a bounce house for the event and then put it up fine, but then they drove out there to go get it. And so there's these big rut tire tracks.
And they rented the North Meadow?
Yeah.
Yeah, so somebody rented the North Meadow for a day's permit. They got the permit. But they had a bounce house.
they drove between the trees, or?
They drove, what, from, yeah, so.
Oh, that side DG area.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they drove basically straight
Wow,
across.
Fix it and build.
That's the plan.
okay.
So that is, I mean, going to the other side, somebody rented it. And then you'll see now that, we do have a couple of bookings for March now. And so our, Diane, who's our temp, is actively meeting with folks and trying to get them signed up for, for events.
Okay.
Any help, any movement on a caterer? I mean, anybody?
I'll provide that in staff comments.
Okay, gotcha.
Because it's not on the agenda, so I can just cover that right now, when we hit that.
Okay, so we can move on
Okay.
to 7, Park Foundation report.
Well, we met actually on Monday. And basically, the agenda that we've been through here is what the foundation's interested in. Obviously, there's concern or questions about, will we change the nature of the park with the playground? Will we change the nature of the park with pickleball? And essentially, questions about how are we going to essentially accommodate the things in the park. Now, remembering the foundation, of course, has lived through many changes in the park, all improvements by the foundation. But much concern about the fact that there's no income coming in, basically. And we talked a little bit about essentially what the circulation plan, has done, and does that really going to increase the use, we hopefully of that. And then we do always look at the financial situation, which of course, of both the foundation, which does have, a treasury at this point and looking for an investment, as well as, of course, the park not seeming to be bringing in revenue. And we do, as Frank has pointed out before, we often look at that empty space where the fountain used to be there, which was a landmark of the park and in fact of the city, the town. If you look at some of the town's photos where they advertise themselves, they have that no longer existing fountain there. So I think that's basic. We're also looking to see how we might increase funding in the foundation. Bill Widmer suggested we might fund one of these park events in the summer, which basically are music events. And we obviously want to bring to the attention of people a little more the park. And we do have solicitations occasionally where we ask for funding. So let's, anything more, Frank?
Of you, I don't know. Now's not probably the right time, but we were going to find a way, if we could, to put a sign up to advertise the foundation. And it would not just a fabric sign.
Let's talk offline.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We'll talk offline on that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm kind of, way behind on the fountain. I thought the fountain was gonna be replaced.
Replace.
We've talked about it repeatedly,
Talked about,
and we've
that-
talked about, we
It's never been funded to do.
we never
what's the
funded it.
foundation?
Foundation's gonna do it, but we've
Okay,
never
when are you gonna do it?
solidified the choice of the fountain at this point. That's what,
Okay.
that's where we're going to.
Who's leading that?
I don't know. Up to you,
Okay,
I guess.
now I see-
Walt and I
now
are.
Now I see the problem.
Who actually destroyed
Now I see the
the
problem.
fountain and made it such it couldn't be reinstalled?
It was about 3 or 4 years ago. Some
Yeah,
kids
it's
got
been-
on it. Parents put their kids on the fountain to take selfies, and then the thing just
Oh.
collapsed. And so to answer your question,
Yes.
Bob, we are actively, we were going to ask Robert if he can go back historically to find out, because we picked out a couple of different fountains 2 or 3 years ago.
I thought we had, yeah.
Yeah, but you've talked about it more recently.
We have, but I don't think we've come up with the fountain, and I think we want to go back and see if you can find what we looked at before, Robert, as far as.
I can, if I recall correctly, it was imported from somewhere.
Something was important, I
Yeah.
think.
There were,
So there are.
there
what
were
it-
4 variations, 2 like 10 times the cost of the other 2.
Right.
Yeah, I remember
And,
that.
and so if you want to spend a couple minutes after this meeting, I'll
Yeah.
kind of show you
Yep.
a couple of places that hopefully are local that you can actually go.
Well, we had desired to find something that looks relatively the same.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go shooting off on another design. We
Mhm.
wanted something that looks relatively like what had historically been there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
so
okay.
Thank you.
Well, we'll get an update on April, I
we
suppose.
will.
Park Division and Park Events Report. I guess we have the staff
You
reports.
have those reports. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer.
Do I have any questions on that? Seeing none, we can move on to individual committee member comments, and I think, Robert, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I was just gonna give an update. So the request for proposals is out for event management services. It's been posted online. It was put up the end of February. We will be putting in ads in the Almanac, advertising the fact that the RFP is out next Friday and the following Friday. If you all know people that are interested, please share the RFP. It's located on our website. If you need me to send you a link to it, I'm happy to do that. But if we can get the word out, Ken, if you have a catering or a event planner friend that knows folks,
Yeah, it's a good idea.
you can share that with them as well.
The group that underbid or that didn't get but bid for the cafe.
That's
here.
what I was, exactly where I was gonna go. Yep.
You should make sure it goes to them. They're
Yep.
in Menlo Park.
You're talking about the coffee folks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Silicon
didn't know
Valley
that that's
Coffee.
their, I don't think that that's their business, but we're happy to share it with whoever.
Matt used to
Oh.
be a chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was going there thinking that if that person wasn't the right person, maybe
It
she
might not
knows
be
someone that is the right
interested. It
person.
might not be his deal.
Or he may know somebody that it would be.
Exactly.
So we're happy, to- like I said, I'm happy to broadcast it
Okay.
any way we can so that we get the right party.
Robert, where on the website would we see the, or,
It is under RFPs and bids.
oh, it's right on the
Yeah,
site? Okay.
yeah, so, but like I said, I'm happy to share the link. We have a few projects that are out for bid right now.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Okay.
The reason I ask is because I remember the process for getting Madam Colette in here and the different terms we had to negotiate. And I can see somebody going in there saying, I've got to sort of end up with a big subsidy or not pay anything for a while, whatever. That's why I'm
Yeah.
interested in what the terms are.
Well, I said I'll share the link and you can take a look at it. It's a little different than
Okay.
the cafe. Cafe required interior improvements. As opposed to a vendor coming on board and taking on the reins of event management services.
Well, it's the winter. It's not easy.
Right now, it's a little rough, but
We can discuss this after the
Yeah.
meeting since it's not on the
Okay.
agenda. Next meeting will be April 3rd, but I think we'll be starting at 5:30 for April's our walkthrough, right?
is it the walkthrough?
I
Okay.
believe we have the walkthrough in April, so. But
And this is the landscape walkthrough?
I believe so. I believe it's the exterior walkthrough, but I forget. Do we usually have?
5:30 or 5?
We can do either. I mean, whatever how long does it usually take? Like 45 minutes?
I think what we'll do is we'll touch base and find out what's gonna happen at the study session.
Okay.
Because I think to adjust, we'll have to adjust the council study
Oh, that's right,
session
because,
to accommodate a move, an early start for this.
okay, okay.
Uh,
Usually we've had it at 5:30. We usually can get it done in 45 minutes. So that will be there. And if we do have it early, it would be great if we got something for the committee members to eat. So that,
Okay,
we're not, so that our council member and our vice chair don't have to snack on chips the entire time. What's it? Maybe more of a decent dinner than a breakfast.
okay. Can I
I
hear
move
a
to,
gavel?
A meeting to adjourn? Any motion? Okay,
Second.
approved. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.